Susan Euler. This program is about color and how it has been used both for personal expression and symbolically throughout time.
We all know, at least on a subliminal level, that different colors evoke different emotions and responses on the part of the viewer. For example, paintings that use mainly warm colors, such as reds, oranges, and yellows, tend to look cheerful and happy, like a bright sunny day. Those painted in cool colors, green, blue, purple, look calm, maybe even sad or depressed. Strong color contrasts, such as bright, vivid red set against black or dark purple, can look angry, dangerous, and threatening. Whereas combinations of pastel colors, such as light blues, greens, yellows, call to mind spring flowers, Easter eggs, and fluffy bunnies. At the turn of the 20th century, a number of artists, such as Wassily Kandinsky, became intrigued by color theory and wrote books, articles, and letters explaining how color works to produce different effects and elicit different responses. Post-impressionist Georges Seurat combined warm, happy colors with turned-up shapes and lines, smile lines, to make his painting of the circus look cheerful and fun. German Expressionist Franz Marc took a less universal, more personal approach towards color, explaining how in his works blue represented masculinity, which he described as both astringent and spiritual. Yellow represented femininity, gentle, happy, and also spiritual. Red, at least according to Marc, was brutal, heavy, and violent, the color of war and other terrible events. Franz Marc, by the way, was killed in the trenches during World War I, not long after he wrote down his theories about color. We may not necessarily agree with Franz Marc that yellow represents femininity or blue represents masculinity. This is because color symbolism is not universal. It depends not just on a visceral response, red hot, blue cold, or on personal experience. Rather, many of the properties that we associate with different colors are culturally determined, and they may not be the same in different cultures or at different time periods even within the same culture. For example, for the past 200 years or so, brides in Western culture have worn white, a color that in the West represents purity and virginity. However, in ancient Rome, which was also a Western culture, brides dressed in a red-orange veil called a flammeum, or flame, meant to represent the glow of a candle. And red is also worn by brides in traditional Hindu ceremonies, since red is thought to promote a happy marriage because it is the color that indicates both sensuality and purity. And it also symbolizes the bride's new role as that of a married woman. But going back to the West, largely thanks to the Puritans, red has come to symbolize just the opposite of purity and a happy marriage. The Puritans, a Christian sect, were widely known for their disapproval of luxury and frivolity, and that included colorful clothing. It was the Puritans of Massachusetts who brought us the infamous Salem witch trials of 1692 and inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne's classic novel, The Scarlet Letter. The Scarlet Letter is a story about a woman, Hester Prynne, who is publicly shamed for having a baby out of wedlock. She is forced to wear a scarlet A on her bodice, standing for adultery, for all to see. The Puritans described the devil as having red horns and, amazingly, feeding his followers red-colored bread. And since many of the devil's alleged followers were women, red became associated with bad women, scarlet women, in other words, prostitutes, and people like the fictional Hester Prynne who have sex before marriage. Other color choices made by our more distant ancestors are less easy to explain. For example, during the Bronze Age, roughly between 3000 and 1000 BC, the ancient Egyptians, as well as the ancient Greeks, painted men with dark skin and women with lighter skin. This has nothing to do with race or with any actual skin color variations between men and women, because there are none. The traditional explanation for this color choice is that men were portrayed as being darker because they spent more time out in the sun than women did. But this explanation does not make total sense, since even women shown working alongside of men, outside, such as in the famous Minoan bull leaping fresco, are shown with lighter skin than their male counterparts. In a recent book, Dr. Mary Ann Everly postulates that the difference in skin coloring has nothing to do with suntans. Rather, the difference is rooted in gender roles and the essential natures of males and females, which are different, yet complementary to one another. A yin-yang concept, Everly suggests that skin color differentiation reflects this symbiotic relationship. The concept of yin-yang comes from Chinese philosophy. It literally means dark light. It explains how opposite and apparently contradictory forces are in reality complementary and interconnected. Examples include fire and water, contracting and expanding, and male and female. Yin is the female force and yang is the male force. However, in terms of color, in Chinese culture, yang is represented by white, the sunny side, and yin by black, the shady side. This is, of course, the opposite color scheme from what was used by the ancient Egyptians and Greeks. But the concept of men and women being complementary to one another may indeed be what the tan men, pale women paint choices represent. No one can say for sure, but it's a very intriguing theory. However, there are other skin color variations used in ancient Egyptian art that have clear and undisputed symbolic meaning. We know that the face of the god Osiris, the god of the underworld, is painted green to represent rebirth and regeneration. The color green refers to vegetation, which dies back in winter but turns green again every spring. In other words, it is reborn, just as the ancient Egyptians hoped to be reborn in the afterlife. In jewelry, the mineral malachite was used to represent rebirth. The ancient Egyptians were buried with a protective amulet known as a heart scarab, which was typically made of malachite or other green stone. The scarab, or dung beetle, is also associated with rebirth. Interestingly, in Chinese culture, one of the attributes of jade is indestructibility. And during the Han Dynasty, between 202 BC and 220 AD, members of the aristocracy, both male and female, were buried in suits made of jade. These suits were thought to protect the body from demons and help the dead achieve immortality by stopping the life force from escaping. And of course, jade is green, the color of rebirth. Christian color symbolism is very complex and varies quite a bit between denominations. However, the color green has the same meaning whether in the Catholic, Protestant, or Eastern Orthodox context. In Christianity, green symbolizes hope, anticipation, renewal, and yes, eternal life. Green is also the color used in traditional Japanese culture to represent eternal life, a concept often symbolized in art by an evergreen tree. In Islam, green was the favorite color of the Prophet Muhammad, who described the people in paradise as wearing green robes. In ancient Celtic culture, green was also the color for rebirth and eternal life, and they used both mistletoe and evergreen trees to symbolize this concept, because both mistletoe and evergreen stay green even in the depths of winter. The early Christians borrowed these symbols from Celtic culture and transformed them into symbols for Christmas, but retained the same meaning. That is, anticipation of being reborn into eternal life, which is of course what the color green meant in ancient Egypt and China as well. So, the color green and its association with vegetation and the renewal of life in spring is the most universally accepted color symbolism, going back as far as the Bronze Age and existing across different cultures and religious beliefs. And then there's the green man, a somewhat sinister-looking figure popular in modern garden decorations as well as in medieval cathedrals. Who is he? Well, he is the Celtic god of fertility. Christian scholars may tell you that in the Christian context, the green man represents the seasons. But no. Let's face it, it's the green man, the Celtic fertility god unchanged for thousands of years. Old traditions die hard.
For the 10-Minute Professor, This is Susan Ray Euler. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to the Susan Euler channel. I've got lots more videos just like this one.